Would you be the jerk for banning your daughter from going to their best friend's house? We'll get into that in a bit, but first, am I the jerk for telling my friend's fiancé that it's his fault she won't eat? My friend, 29-year-old female, and her fiancé, 30-year-old male, have been together for 3 years, and they split all their bills. But my friend is an elementary school teacher earning poverty wages while her fiancé is a software engineer earning 7 times what she makes. He has expensive tastes and always prefers to eat out at fine dining establishments. She cannot afford to split the bill, so she'll eat McDonald's or snacks beforehand, and then only order a side salad or soup. Or she'll just order a side salad and go hungry because she can't afford anything else, but he insists on expensive restaurants. He always pokes fun at her eating salads. He mentioned it to our friend group at a party and joked that women are always eating salads to watch their weight. I commented that my friend doesn't eat because she can't afford his expensive restaurant tastes, as a woman in poverty, and it's his fault she goes without. He was shocked at this and it caused a disturbance. My friend was outraged that I embarrassed them in front of people. Am I the jerk? So, especially considering the person got upset that OP shared that information, I would usually say that OP would be the jerk for sharing that information that somebody doesn't want shared about their finances. The bottom line here is that guy deserved and needed to be called out like that. To keep going on like that and not understand why it is that she's ordering salads when they insist on splitting the bill, I mean, he needed somebody to call him out and challenge him on it. Honestly, I'm surprised OP as a friend, knowing the situation, didn't themselves already personally reach out to the friend's fiancé and tell him off for that. I get being embarrassed about having that revealed, but I can't imagine fighting your friend and losing a friend who was willing to stick up for you in that way. Pale Needleworker 924 wrote, "Not the jerk. I feel like there was a point where your friend's fiancé realized that she could not keep up with his expensive tastes financially because there's no way he didn't see that. I do want to know though, did your friend ever bring it up with him on how she couldn't afford his choices? You just said what he was thinking out loud and he didn't like what he heard. He deserves to be embarrassed because treating your fiancé like that is honestly disgusting unless he was totally oblivious, which still doesn't make it right. And he sounds like a D-bag for just joking about women and salads, like, what the heck? For the people who say that some people just go for salads, yes, you're right, some people do just go for salad. But that has absolutely nothing to do with their gender. The stereotype that women strive to be skinny to please men is so outdated and misogynistic. It's 2022, people. And in my personal take, it was obvious that OP's friend was never going to stand up for herself, and that disturbance was the wake-up call that her fiancé desperately needed. Not much of a wake-up call though, he obviously knew and chose to ignore it. I know airing out someone's finances might seem violating, but I believe it was justified here. Dale Elise responded to that saying, "I don't know. I had an ex who came from money and this is exactly the mentality he had. Sometimes people with money lose touch a little and can be oblivious when people are struggling financially. The aforementioned ex met my single mom bestie who lived in a trailer hustling 3 jobs. He asked her, 'Hey, what's your Wi-Fi password?' She tells him she doesn't have internet because she can't afford it. And I swear I saw his brain melt. He was beyond shook and went a little pale. OP is not the jerk for telling the truth, but maybe next time pull him aside and tell him in private so you're not airing someone's finances out. He deserved a reality check. Also, hi, I'm Steven, and if you guys enjoy getting to decide whether or not all of these people are jerks, why not hit those like and subscribe buttons down below? That said, our next story is, am I the jerk for leaving everything to my bio children and none to my step? I, 51-year-old female, have been battling cancer since I was 28. It's came back 3 times and now I'm at a point in my life where I'm comfortably living with cancer. I have 2 daughters in their 20s, with children, one being widowed. I remarried 2 years ago to a man with 4 children, one still living at home with us. He's 19. It's been weighing heavy on my mind to make sure everything's in order in case of the worst, and I had told my husband I'd planned to leave everything to my children and grandchildren. I wanted to make sure they were set. He got upset and said that was horrible because I married a man knowing he had children, that what I was doing was horrible and would make them feel unloved. I love my stepchildren like my own, but one of my daughters are a 29-year-old widow with 3 young children. My husband is an oral surgeon, he makes great money, and what he chooses to do with it after he passes is up to him. He's been very upset by this and has not been talking to me, and he even told his eldest daughter, who's also had many tragedies in her life, and she brought it up when she stopped by the house. She was also upset by this. I don't have much to offer. Not like my husband, but I don't see the big deal. I don't want their feelings hurt. My husband says it's the principle I married a man with children. Am I the jerk? I just don't think OP's the jerk. When you married him, 3 of his 4 children weren't living at home, and the one that was 17 years old. It's not like you've grown up being a mother to these children in any capacity. It's not even like you've ever truly been a parent to them. OP making a will and choosing to prioritize only their kids and their grandchildren is just not a surprise to me. Artistic Thought 7309 wrote, "He may be a high earner as an oral surgeon, but I would not be surprised if he married you for money. Of your 51 years of life, this man has not been in 49 of those. It sounds like, with the exception of the 19-year-old, all his other 3 children are adults. Why on earth would they expect to be part of the will of a woman they only met 2 years ago when they were already grown-ups? I believe you need to revisit this relationship. As Maya Angelou said, when someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. Not the jerk, and get well." Our next story is, am I the jerk for being rude to my stepdaughter and banning her from eating with the family? I have 2 stepdaughters, Scarlett, 18, and Ava, 16. Scarlett is an amazing singer. She's been in some kind of voice lessons since she was 10 and just graduated from one of the best performing art schools in the state, where she went on a full scholarship since 6th grade. She has a YouTube channel where she sings that she's starting to make money from and was accepted into some very prestigious music schools. Additionally, she's been working paid gigs for the last 2 years and makes at least $500 to $1,000 per week, more in the summers. She's even been the opening artist at a few concerts. I'm not trying to brag, I'm just saying she's an objectively good singer. Eva, on the other hand, is not a good singer. She likes to believe she is, and she might become one if she actually stuck with voice lessons or choir classes, but she always quits after 1 to 2 weeks because they're bullying her, giving constructive feedback. I've seen the notes her classmates and teachers have given her. Eva also likes to sing very loudly and/or at bad times. For example, if she feels that we're too quiet at the dinner table, she starts to loudly sing. It doesn't sound good, and I honestly don't know how she doesn't hear it. If you ask her to stop, she keeps going, and if you're blunt and say stop, that doesn't sound good or we don't want to hear it, she keeps going and gets even louder just to annoy you. If we're in the car and we don't let her choose the songs, she'll loudly sing whatever she wants, not what's playing, to annoy us, and responds the same way to us telling her to stop. The only person she listens to is her dad. A few weeks ago, we were trying to eat and she was singing again. I told her to stop and she refused, so I took her plate and told her from now on she is no longer allowed to eat at my table. She can eat in her room, the backyard, the car, the garage, wherever she wants, as long as we can't hear her from the dining room, and that this will continue until she can behave appropriately at the table. My husband and I argued about it, but he's not home for dinner, so there isn't much he can do about it. Today, she was eating lunch with us and started singing again. I told her to stop and she didn't listen, so I again took her plate and told her to eat somewhere where we can't hear her if she doesn't want to act appropriately. Ava argued that she's a better singer than Scarlett and that Scarlett sings all the time. I was done with her bull, so I asked her how many times someone other than her dad has actually asked her to sing, not even paying her to be there. Just ask her to sing, or how many performing arts schools she's gotten accepted to. She's applied to many. She started to cry, and my husband wants me to apologize for being rude to her and is insisting I allow her to eat with the family again. Am I the jerk? I feel like as long as OP's not denying the kid any food, they're not the jerk here. It would be one thing if this was like some little kid wanting to play Baby Shark on full blast on a tablet all the time, but Ava is 16 years old. They should be able to have enough restraint to not just blatantly, blaringly sing out loud like they're trying to proclaim how much of a child prodigy they still are when everybody else is just trying to sit down and eat. Specialist Owl 2660 wrote, "Okay, for almost the entirety of the story, I was ready to say not the jerk until the very end. So her sister gets to sing at the dinner table, just not her? I mean, I think it's weird to sing at the dinner table anyways, but if you have a double standard going on here, then you're the jerk. Ava is younger than her sister. Sometimes it takes some time to get better at something, and acting rude to her and discouraging her because you clearly don't like her makes you the jerk. Ava is younger than her sister. Sometimes it takes some time to get better at something, and acting rude to her and discouraging her because you clearly don't like her makes you the jerk. Either ban singing at the dinner table completely or keep your mouth shut and invoke the thumper rule. If you can't say something nice, don't say anything at all. OP responded saying her sister does not sing at the dinner table. She does sing a lot, but at more appropriate times. Our next story is, would I be the jerk for uninviting my brother to my wedding after he canceled on hosting the wedding? My fiancé and I decided we wanted to have an intimate wedding ceremony instead of a large wedding. For the venue, we asked my brother and sister-in-law if we could have it in their backyard about a year ago. They said they would be honored to host. We knew it was a big ask since they had a second newborn on the way and promised we would be unobtrusive as possible and take care of everything that needed to be taken care of. For guest count, we're at 26 people, so as intimate as possible for a backyard wedding. They insisted it would be a wonderful setting and it would mean a lot to them to have it there as well. We're pretty close-knit. We come from a household of strong family values and grew up together. So we're about a month and a half out from our wedding day, and my brother just informed us that they could no longer host the wedding at their place. Through happenstance, their nanny/family friend, who's also monk, found out we were having our wedding there and told them it would bring less luck to their family. Apparently, the superstition goes that if you host a sibling's wedding at your house, you give away your luck to that family. And now that they're new parents to a 6-month and 2-year-old, they don't want anything to happen to them and want to give them the best chance at life they possibly can. Nobody knew about this until now. Our family has never really been superstitious. I know my sister-in-law's family is more conservative and believes in these sort of things. I'm pretty tolerant of others' belief systems, and while I don't understand it, I do respect it. But we are literally less than 2 months out now from our big day. Fortunately, a venue change isn't too difficult, but it definitely throws a curveball into logistics when we've had everything already set. Adding info, edited first paragraph for clarity on timeline of when the ask was/grammar. We live in the US. Not sure what religion or sect, guessing Buddhism or Feng Shui. He did try to find us a new venue, not well thought out options, but still tried nonetheless. Did offer to cover whatever additional cost to send out invites. Was not explicitly stated, but based on our relationship and knowing my brother, he would try to cover the venue cost. I just can't fault OP here. This isn't like some situation where the house all of a sudden had some mold breakout or something that makes it clearly not the right place to host this. They got turned on to something that most people would argue is a superstitious belief, and a month and a half out from their wedding day, completely dropped the ball for OP. Almost anybody in that situation is going to be upset and probably, understandably, don't even want to see that person on their wedding day when they try to pivot and save it a month and a half out. Confused at 63 wrote, "Not the jerk, just tell him that you don't want to bring bad luck to his house and you don't want him to bring bad luck to your wedding. You are afraid some superstition you're unaware of might follow him into your wedding. It is just as ridiculous as the excuse he gave you. Just don't share the new location or the correct time with him, or be honest and just tell him that his cancellation of the location was also his cancellation on the invitation." Our next story is, am I the jerk for telling my dad to correct his and his wife's lie to his stepdaughter, or he can deal with the consequences? My dad remarried when I was 12 after the death of my mom. My dad's wife was a widow also and had a 7-year-old daughter at the time. I didn't blend the way they wanted me to. I don't hate my dad's wife or stepdaughter. I never felt a family bond with them though, but my stepsister can be really sweet. She's also special needs and behaves very young as a result. She struggles to comprehend things the way someone her age, 20, would, and her view of the world is very young. It makes her far easier to manipulate and far easier to upset. There were times where I still lived with them that I had to be so careful about the things I talked about because she would get so upset. Movies had to be very happy and cheerful and could not have death or bullying or any sarcasm in them because they could really upset her, which is why I'm so angry right now. So I'm expecting a baby, and my stepsister was so excited the last time she saw me, and she told me she was so excited for me to have a boy named after her dad. I asked her what she meant, and she told me my dad and her mom told her I was going to name a boy after her dad like I'd name a girl after my mom. She told me she hopes I have a boy, and she was so excited and so easily believed that I was going to do that. I mentioned this to my dad, and he sheepishly admitted that they had told her that and that they were going to ask me to consider naming a son after my stepsister's dad, because it would mean so much to her. I told him I wasn't going to do that and he should have known that. He told me they figured, but they also really wanted his stepdaughter to be happy. I spoke to him with his wife present and told him to correct the lie they told, or he can deal with the consequences of not doing so. She told me I would be heartless to deny her daughter this. My dad asked why I wouldn't do it, and I told him because I'm not the one who told the lie. I told him the choice was up to him, and he can live with the consequences. They said I was blackmailing them and playing games, which wasn't fair. Am I the jerk? I'd love really to hear anybody's explanation as to why OP would be the jerk in this situation. Not only is it their lie to deal with, it's not OP's responsibility in any way to coddle this kid. Tree Frog Ninja wrote, ETA, not the jerk, obviously. As unfortunate as it is, you are going to have to be the one to tell her the truth if you want to continue having a relationship with her. There's no way those two are going to admit their fault when they tell her. You will be made out to be the bad guy forever, and by forever, I mean for the rest of your child's life. It's perfectly fair for you to be angry to the point of being completely disgusted with them. But the question is, what do you want pragmatically? Do you want to walk away from this mess? Because you certainly can. Do you want to continue being friends with your stepsister? If so, think carefully about how you're going to handle this. There's no way to avoid hurting her feelings, but you've been in each other's lives long enough that there's no one better equipped to get you both through this than you are yourself. As far as your feelings, talk to your partner and/or a therapist or other BFF you can trust. How you deal with your family should be about your goals, how you want to come out at the end of this. Your parents clearly aren't interested in your feelings or your well-being, so my advice is don't even bother taking your anger to them. It won't do you any good. Deal with them pragmatically as a problem to be solved. What do you want for the future, and what's the most effective way to get you there? OP responded saying, I'm very close to walking away, honestly. I don't have a close relationship with my stepsister, so I don't feel obligated to stay close to her or have much of a desire to. I left the decision to my dad because a lot of it comes down to whether he attempts to make up for this or not, and if he doesn't, then I'm fully done. Our next story is, am I the jerk for suggesting someone turn down their toddler's phone or tablet volume during a wedding reception speech? The table behind me at a reception dinner had a toddler watching a video at a high volume during the speeches. I looked over a handful of times because it was distracting, hoping they would get the hint to turn the volume down. The mother eventually made a comment about it and said, my kid didn't get a nap today. I totally understand the importance of a kid's nap schedule and that they can become tiny beasts if they don't get enough sleep. After the speeches were done, the mother confronted me in a very aggressive manner and thought I was questioning her parent skills and screen time choices. I hadn't said boo to her and wasn't questioning her abilities as a mother at all. In general, I thought it was a common courtesy not to have the volume of electronics up high in a public place or at an event when someone is speaking. Am I the jerk? OP is definitely not the jerk here. OP's absolutely right. The etiquette is definitely, if you can't control your kid, or by extension the devices your kid is wielding, please remove your kid and/or your kid's device from the general vicinity. Spare everybody else the baby shark. Feminist 1946 wrote, not the jerk. This is why child-free weddings are becoming more popular. Mothers think the world revolves around them. They are encouraged in this view by other mothers who think they get a pass for imposing their offspring on the rest of us. Right now I'm at a high-end restaurant where children are screaming and running around and babies are crying. It so adds to my experience. This next story is, am I the jerk for warning my brother's fiancé her wedding dress might cause problems? My brother's getting married soon, and his fiancé chose a very revealing wedding dress. It's low-cut with a thigh-high slit and a sheer back. I'm all for people wearing what they want, but our family is quite conservative and opinionated, and I know this dress will cause a lot of drama, especially with our grandparents. Talking people walking out on the wedding kind of drama. At a family dinner, I pulled her aside and gently suggested she might want to reconsider her choice, explaining the likely reactions from our older relatives. I made sure to clarify that I absolutely respect it's her choice and her special day, but wanted to at least warn her of what could happen. She got very upset and said it's her wedding and she'll wear whatever she wants. My brother is now mad at me, accusing me of trying to control their wedding. Some of my family members think I was just looking out for her, while others say I overstepped. Am I the jerk for telling my brother's fiancé her wedding dress might be inappropriate for our conservative family? I'm a little on the fence on this one. I do think OP went about it in a bad way, essentially kind of saying, hey, you should probably reconsider your wedding dress choice, and not instead coming at this from a perspective of, I completely support your decision, I just want you to know, I think there's going to be people walking out. I'm not trying to convince you otherwise, I just don't want you to be blindsided by how conservative some of the family members are. Girly Food Adventures wrote, the time to mention it would have been before she went shopping. The groom should have discussed it with her before the shopping. I absolutely agree that now that the dress has been purchased, it's more complicated. But if the family is likely to react as dramatically as OP suspects, the bride should absolutely have that information, and the sooner the better. I think that the groom is the jerk here. Even if he doesn't care about his family crap-talking his bride or wife, he should know that it's a plausible outcome. If I picked out a dress that I loved, that my groom okayed, either having seen it or by description, and his grandparents left the wedding out of disgust, or aunts and uncles spent the whole wedding looking at me like a harlot, or the family refused to put up wedding photos with those of other siblings, or the skankiness of my wedding dress was a point of discussion for years, I would be incredibly angry if my partner didn't discuss these possibilities with me because he didn't care. The worst time for the bride to find out about this dynamic would be if people leave during the ceremony. The second worst is day of. The more time she has to process and react, the better. At the very least, she'll at least be prepared to brush off any bull that comes her way. Maybe OP overstepped a little bit, but if this was the first/only time future sister-in-law was hearing about the potential for these reactions, I think OP did her a solid. Our next story is, am I the jerk for not taking back pajamas my boyfriend's girl best friend wore? The past weekend, my boyfriend and I joined his friends for a weekend getaway at a cabin, Airbnb. There were 5 people in total, me, him, a male friend, his girlfriend, and my best friend's girl best friend. I've never liked his girl best friend because she gives me pick-me vibes, and I think she either has a crush on my boyfriend or she likes attention. She doesn't like me either. I remain very cordial to her. When we arrived at the cabin, she told my boyfriend that she hadn't packed any pajamas, and none of her clothes were appropriate since they'd get dirty. She couldn't wear the other girls' clothes because they wouldn't fit, so she begged my boyfriend to give her my pajamas since I always pack extra. Without asking me, he gave her my pajamas. So I came out of the shower to find her wearing my pajamas, and with the bottom basically shoved all the way up her crack, she spent the entire weekend lounging in my PJs. When the weekend was over, she tried to give them back to me, and I said that she could keep them. She got mad at me and asked if I thought she was dirty or had cooties. I said she could just keep them since it seemed like she liked them a lot. She called me a mean girl and said I was being rude. It ruined the mood since the other friend took her side, while his girlfriend took mine, and my boyfriend had to take my side, and now things are really awkward, and I think I might be iced out by my boyfriend's friends. Am I the jerk? I don't think OP's the jerk here. Obviously, people are going to vary wildly as far as how much of a germaphobe they are, how comfortable they feel in sharing clothes, and taking back clothes that other people have lounged around in for multiple days, even after it went through multiple cycles in the wash. And I think you could also argue it's not even about the germs truly, it's more about what those clothes stand for now, what it reminds OP of. And obviously the biggest issue here is not even the clothes, but the fact that OP was never consulted. They just handed OP's clothes away. Read Illustrious 4580 wrote, she got her power trip out of getting your boyfriend to do her bidding, and then further exploits the situation by acting the victim. Your boyfriend is more her boyfriend than yours, sorry to say. I don't see what you want out of this relationship. This guy has no sense of boundaries at your expense. What's next? The mother-in-law raiding your fridge while you're at work and taking your baby to the courthouse to rename it after herself? Or father-in-law and your boyfriend drives them there? What a guy. He may take your side this time, but something will happen again. He isn't always going to side with you, so you have to decide if that's something you can live with. Our next story is, am I the jerk for telling another parent they're wrong to blame my daughter and expect too much of me when their kid is in my home? My daughter, Aria, 13-year-old female, has been best friends with Lila, 13-year-old female, since they went to the same preschool together. They're always spending time together and have a bigger group of friends, but know each other the longest and are the closest with each other. Lila's family situation is a little difficult, and her mom went a little crazy on me last week, which led to a conflict. To sum up the current problem, Lila has a blended family. It's her mom, her stepdad, some step-siblings, and some half-siblings. Lila had expressed that she doesn't feel close to them. She always emphasizes that she has no real siblings, and that even her half-siblings are just half-siblings and they're not her dad's kids too. I've heard her tell Arya how much it bugs her when people say her step and half-siblings are just siblings, but they don't talk about it too often. Lila's mother showed up at my house last week and blamed Arya for Lila's use of these step and half terms. She said she heard the girls talk about it and them say step and half siblings aren't real siblings. She said she knows that it must have come from Arya because she's been fighting Lila for years to stop saying step and half. I asked her how that even made sense. She told me Arya must be the source, and I told her Lila says that whether Arya is around or not, and she's wrong to blame Arya for how Lila feels. Lila's mother then told me that I should be watching over the girls whenever they're in my home or my presence and correcting Lila whenever she uses step, half, or says they're not her real family. I told Lila's mother she couldn't seriously expect me to listen to them 24/7 so I can correct Lila, and it's too much of her to expect me to do when her kid is over to play with mine. She was not happy with me at all. She told me I can't say Arya isn't to blame and in the same breath refused to correct Lila when she says something wrong. She told me I just want to let them away with saying stuff and I don't do enough for Lila, even though Lila spends more time at my house than she does her own. In the same breath, Lila's mother said her husband is so sick of Lila refusing to cooperate there and she needs to be here more so I can correct her. I told her she really is expecting too much. She told me I was a bench and a crappy person. Am I the jerk? I think OP's wholeheartedly not the jerk, but I would almost implore OP to consider whether or not they have any kind of care for Lila. And if so, it might even be better for OP to have a conversation with Lila and tell them that OP supports them. They're not going to be strict with them like that, but they are going to lie and say that they are trying to correct it. Needless to say, when Lila grows up, chances are this is the kind of family that Lila will move away from and try to never talk to again. OP saying that Lila spends more time at OP's house than at their own home tells me that it might be worth lying to their parents and saying, oh yeah, I correct them every time now, just for the sake of giving Lila that reprieve from having to deal with those people, rather than fuel the mom to rip Lila back to their house and say, don't go over to that lady's house no more. Greek American Dom wrote, Lila's mom is one of those remarried divorcees who want their child from her previous marriage to happily accept her new husband and family as if it's perfect. That's utter bull, but correcting language is much easier than actually listening and showing empathy for a position that makes you out to be a jerk. This next story is, am I the jerk for banning my daughter from going to her best friend's house? My daughter and her best friend Will have been friends since they were 5, and I let her sleep over at his house sometimes. They're 13. Her best friend is a really sweet boy and I love their dynamic. I think that both of them are adorable, but I don't think I can continue letting her go to his house. This is so insane, but my daughter fell and broke her arm while at their house. Accidents happen, so I would have been understanding if his mom called me, but she didn't. I had no idea about it until my daughter came home the next day. She didn't have a phone because hers was broken, and I didn't get around to buying her a new one yet because we've had a lot of expensives, so I trusted her parents would call me if there was an issue. But no, she spent the night at their house and then walked home with her best friend. So his parents didn't even walk her home while her arm was broken. The most insane part of this all is that her mom is a nurse, so there isn't any excuse. I told her that I find it really messed up that she didn't tell me, and it turned into a whole argument. She said my daughter seemed fine and she was playing afterwards, and she was too exhausted to take her to the hospital. She said she knew I would make a big deal out of nothing, so she thought I could wait. I insulted her, if I'm honest. I said she was a terrible parent and treated my daughter terribly. She let her walk home alone, well, with a child, but a parent should have been with her, and she should have called me the second my daughter was hurt. She insulted me back and it was a whole mess. I told my daughter and my son that they can't go over to that house anymore because that kid's parents are clearly insane. My daughter is especially sad about this because that is her best friend, but I do think it's for the best. I do not feel comfortable leaving them alone together. I feel like those parents are neglectful. You know, going into this, I thought OP was going to say more of an angle from they're 13 now, and with it being your daughter and her boy best friend, it was just going to be like an age thing. But when this goes down and all of a sudden you're afraid, what if my daughter fell out of a tree when they weren't looking, snapped their neck and are gone? I know it's a crazy leap to make, but they didn't report a broken arm. Who's to say that they're not going to grab a shovel and say, oh, I don't know where they went? You just can't in good conscience send your kid to a place like that, where I get it, supervision 24/7 is not possible, but when something does happen, they don't even report it. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. Now, if you want to hear another crazy Am I the Jerk Here story, check out that video on the left. Or if you missed my latest video, check out that video on the right. That said, I'll see you all next time with some more stories.